Boy, I keep I keep hoping to find a glimmer in the actual aired episodes for Colin Baker's Sixth Doctor because I know he can work. He's good in Big Finish, but wow. Revelation of the Daleks. Couple things about this one. First is I've actually seen it before. This was the first Sixth Doctor story I ever saw. And the reason I started with this one is because I had heard that it was one of the better regarded ones that he was in. It didn't give me a great impression, partially for a reason that I will get into a little bit later. But yeah, it's Here's the thing. It's not awful. It isn't. But wow, is it boilerplate? Wow, is it just very run-of-the-mill for what they'd been doing with the Daleks for a while? First of all, it can't just be a Dalek story. It has to be a Davros story. Every Dalek story is a Davros story ever since Genesis of the Daleks, when we get into Classic Who. The place where that was the least obtrusive was Remembrance of the Daleks, because there it was a twist that it was Davros. So he injected himself at the very end, but we got to see just a whole bunch of Daleks before that. Here, no, there's Davros just a few minutes into this thing. So there's also too much going on. There's too many plots. There's too many people with machinations. And I couldn't tell you if everybody's plans and motivations and everything track. I don't think they do. But I say that knowing full well that some of the stuff slid right off my brain and I could not keep on top of it. So we have this planet famous for what is kind of a living mausoleum. Okay, so it's weird. So it's like they basically put people into a perpetual suspended animation, but they still have a funeral and they treat it like they're dead. It's weird. The Doctor and Peri show up there. They spend basically the entire first half of this story walking to get to the place where anything is actually happening. And I'm not even really exaggerating. Like, there's some forced action. There's like a guy with a half-melted face who attacks them, who starts choking the Doctor, and Peri has to kill him by beating him over the head with a stick. The guy doesn't die immediately. He dies a little bit later being like, "No, I understand why you killed me. In your position, I'd have done the same." Bleh. And Peri even points out, like, it's somehow I feel worse that he was kind of okay with it. Like, I swear, this show revels in traumatizing Peri. I don't know what it was about her that the writers just loved to put her through hell. Ugh. It feels gross. Oh, and I'll mention this now because it starts with Peri. This episode's got a thing for calling people fat. Doctor gets called fat once. Peri gets called fat twice. There's also another character towards the tail end who gets called fat, and that's about the only one that I'll give a little bit of a pass to, because that gets said by someone who is of about the same size and is clearly grasping for anything to shout at them because she's so pissed at him. It's still not great, but it's certainly a hell of a lot better than opening the frickin' story with Peri being like, this thing I'm wearing is uncomfortable, and the Doctor saying she eats too much, implying that her neck has gotten fat, and that's why she's uncomfortable. And he points out her weight again later, and she does it right back to it. Like, come on. And like, aside from just being, like I don't think Peri even qualifies for show business chubby, much less fat. Don't like it. Don't like it. But anyway, as I said, they spend this was during the era where instead of a standard story being 4 parts at 22 minutes apiece, this was 2 parts at 44 minutes apiece, which draws even more attention that for the entire first part, the Doctor and Peri are just traveling from point A to point B. They don't know anything else that's going on. They don't know anyone else who is involved. They're just walking. Yep. That's all they're doing for that first half. We'll talk about what they do in the second half in a minute. But some of the other stuff going on. So, like, while we have the Doctor and Peri just walking and getting hung up for multiple minutes on how do we get past a wall that's barely too tall to, like, hoist yourself up onto. So there's them. But then we've got Davros here, who has, like, installed himself, and he's calling himself the Great Healer, and he's manipulating, like, their head. He's not a coroner. I forget what he calls himself, but, like, the guy who runs the place named Jobel, but he's planning to kind of backstab Davros for his own ends, and Jobel has an assistant who's this woman who, whenever she's talking to him, she's just simping all over him and, like, complete demure. Oh, please notice me. And then the instant she's talking to anyone else, she's this shrill, screeching, cruel person. And then there's these people that are, like, supplying Davros with money, of all things. What the hell does he even want money for? Something they might have even said. But these people are all acting polite to Davros, but they don't actually want to support him anymore. So they've hired an assassin, Orsini, and he is taking the job because it's a noble killing as opposed to what he's normally hired to do. And this guy's got to be the single most pretentious assassin he has a squire, for crying out loud. And the thing is, under other circumstances, I could even see there being a bit of fun with this overly noble, like, almost sort of gentleman assassin. It's actually kind of absurd in a way that I think I could have liked if it just didn't feel deeply unnecessary, and one more element in here that's just elbowing everything else out of the way for space. And there's a couple of guys who kind of work security within the mausoleum kind of place. And first of all, I swear these two guys are a couple. I'm just going to say that right now. These two guys are romantic partners. Their banter fits that very well. But, like, they've got their own stuff going on, and there's Daleks wandering around, and later on there's going to be a completely different set of Daleks wandering around, and most people are taking action, only being aware of, at most, one or two other people who are involved in everything that's going on. Oh, and there's the DJ I completely forgot. I don't know the actor's name, but he's from The Young Ones, playing this DJ who is emulating Earth DJs of, like, the 50s and 60s because, like, his grandfather or somebody came back with music from that. So he's just doing that, and he's also there, and they cut to him, and he's changing outfits. He's got a biker jacket on, like a greaser from the 50s at one point, and then he's got, like, a country thing going with a cowboy hat later on, and, like, this guy has no reason to be here. And in a story less overstuffed with crisscrossing plot lines that don't really connect other than they're happening in the same place at the same time, he could have been something that added, like, a nice kind of little flavor, a little break from what else is going on. But I couldn't wrap my head well enough around what else was going on, so it didn't feel like a break. It was just more stuff. It's really annoying to try and follow this. Oh, and I completely forgot about these two people who they get accused of being body snatchers or grave robbers, and they're there because her father is there and they want to reclaim his body, but they get captured, but they're there for their own reasons and they don't know a whole bunch of what's going on either. I think that's everybody. I think there's too much. There's way too much going on. And like I said, it would be one thing. It's not like there's too many characters. This many characters could have worked if all the stories they're involved in naturally fit together and intertwined better. But like I said, they don't really. They're just kind of all happening at the same time in the same location. They don't actually build on each other for the most part. And the Doctor... Okay. I said I'd come back to what the Doctor and Peri do in the second half, because you know what they do in the second half? Basically nothing. Seriously, I don't think I could tell you a single concrete thing either of them does that actually impacts the story. The Doctor just shows up and Davros is all like, "Oh, Doctor, you're here." I'm like, why is he here though? Because seriously, everything else going on, these various people betraying each other, having their own plans, trying to break into this, trying to stop that, did it. All of this, none of it's instigated by the Doctor. You could remove him from this and basically everything plays out exactly the same, except maybe the DJ doesn't die, spoilers, because he was trying to protect Peri. But since he was a superfluous character in the first place, that doesn't really feel like it has much impact either. The Doctor does nothing. He spends literally half this story walking, and then he spends most of the next half just locked up, and then he just kind of stands around acting as if he did something, but he doesn't. He never did. It's so weird. It's so weird. I don't know what to make of this thing. And like, there's some interesting ideas. There's some gross ideas too, because we have later stuff from the modern era with some stuff like, say, Bad Wolf and The Parting of the Ways, which introduced this idea of mutating humans until you basically recreate a Dalek. We kind of get that here. So these bodies that are supposedly being interred in suspended animation are instead being mutated into new Daleks. And there's actually a very like visually creepy, like honestly, probably a little bit too gross thing where like this guy and like he's all bulbous and it's pulsing and he's inside like this clear plastic Dalek casing, which is kind of a fascinating visual. Like logistically, it kind of makes no sense. Why would you design it that way? But just as a visual, that looks really cool and really creepy. And like, that's great. And there's little bits and moments like that. And honestly, the set's pretty good. Production values are decent in this one, especially for this era of Doctor Who. But it's in service of a story that I don't think I could really recount. I don't think I could actually sit down and write out everybody involved, what they were doing, why, and how it impacted anything else. I'd end up with a scattering of things that they just don't fit together. And like, there's even some decent or interesting performances. I mean, well, there's the woman who's the assistant, and I don't love her, and like especially because they go for this weird woman scorn thing at the end because Jobel like makes creepy moony eyes at Peri. And he certainly claims that he's like the most eligible bachelor, which normally I would consider to be a joke, except that this woman certainly treats him as if he is. Like, why? But she ends up killing him in anger. It is funny when he falls down and his toupee flops back and it's just kind of spread out on the ground. But he's played by Clive Swift, who would come back again in Doctor Who in Voyage of the Damned. He played Mr. Copper in that one. So, and I like when Doctor Who does that. I kind of like when they bring back actors to play different parts. But he's appropriately skeevy. He's solid. He's good. He's good in that. And I think it's still Terry Malloy playing Davros. Like, he's very shouty as Davros was, but he's good for this part. He knows what he's doing. And like I said, production values are pretty solid. I do always like the general idea of factions of Daleks, because what we have here is Davros creating his own army of Daleks loyal to him. But one of the ways he gets defeated is that the normal Daleks, answering to the Supreme Dalek, they show up because there's this fracturing, this factionalization within Daleks. And I'm like, I'm here for that. I've actually been saying for a while, I really wish Doctor Who would probably revisit this idea of infighting between the Daleks, of fractionalization and having a Dalek civil war. I think that is a long overdue idea to be revisited, because there's some of it in here, there's some of it in Remembrance. I would love for Modern Era to dive back into it. They just haven't. Closest they've come was Revolution of the Daleks, and that was over very quick. But, like, so there's stuff here that's some good ideas, but this thing's a mess. A surprisingly well-produced mess. So, like, I guess I kind of see why it's considered one of Colin Baker's better ones. That's not a great scale to be measuring by, but it's not good. It can be one of his best and still be bad, and it's pretty bad. And it's definitely a poor showcase for the Doctor as a character, because he doesn't do anything! Revelation of the Daleks. What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills and enables me to do this as my living. Any amount you're able to assist is of assistance. I can form words. It's not like talking with my job or anything. Don't worry too much about it, though. Like, share, subscribe. Those help me out as well. But, you know, don't worry too much about that either. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can come on back next time you need a break. And now my thanks to my highest supporters on Patreon. Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfula, Tarak, The Thing That Goes Doink in the Anime, Oliver B., Melinda Walters, Emu Delkey, Leotha Boyd, Becky Sparks, Fernabulax, The Poodle, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Tim Price, Adam R.D.L. Taylor, Shayla Gourlay, and Rosalind Bennett. Thanks for your support. And if you want to get your name in the credits, check out the rewards on the Patreon.